Hey, welcome back. So it's now time to actually populate our table. So in order to do that, we need to have the API actually read what we want to do. So it would be a good idea that every time in the main JavaScript file that we do send data, we also tell it what type of data we are sending. Okay. That is important so that on the other side we know what to do with what we've received and how to send it back. Okay, so here we're going to create an object. We'll send the data as an object because it's expecting an object or an array, one of the two, but I would rather use objects. So to create an empty object, we do this. We say var obj, which is it can be anything, and then we do that, and that is an object right there. But if we add some items like whatever it is, and then we add a value here, then it still counts as an object. Or we can just copy everything here and move it in here. It's the same thing. That way we don't have to declare any variables. So this is what I want to do. So I want to be able to send data underscore type like that and call that data type. What do we want to do? We want to read from the database. So we just send and say read, and that's it. Okay. So when we get to this part now, we have to collect the data we've received and return that data instead of this text. So let's put our PHP tags there to prepare ourselves for the code we want to type. And in order to get the data, we use an input called PHP input. So I'm going to say data is equal to, we'll use file get contents. And then where does it get the contents from? Let's put our inverted commas. It's the PHP / input like that. Okay, so hopefully I haven't messed that up. So in order to be sure that I haven't, I'm going to say print readable data, or I'm just going to echo the data itself. Echo data. So remember that what I'm receiving here is a string, okay? Because even though I'm sending an object here, I'm stringifying it here, so it will reach as a string. So let's now refresh, and you see the data we get here. Data type read. So everything is working fine. We are getting the data, echoing it out, and sending it back here just to console log it as again. Okay, so pretty good, yeah. So now that we've gotten our data, we just need to convert it to an object. So we'll say we're going to call this object obj like that. Okay, obj is equal to JSON. We're going to use JSON, without the A, JSON decode. Okay, so JSON decode data like so. All right, so now that we have an object, we just need to check what data type it is, and once we know the data type, then we can do some stuff with it. So I'm just going to say if is object obj, so we only proceed if it's an object like that, otherwise we ignore everything. And then if it's an object, now we say if obj data type. So we should always make sure data type is there when we are sending data here. If the data type is equal to read, then we'll do something to read here and return what we want to return. Now, in order for us to be able to read from the database, we need to actually connect to the database. So first of all, let's create our session and make sure we put session start here. Sorry. So do not worry much about the PHP code. Once you do this, it will work with the other side. So we're going to do the heavy lifting with our JavaScript. This is just so we can read and write to the database. Okay, because we can't do that with JavaScript since it's not on the server, it's on the client side. So we need a file on the server itself, because you can only read and write to the database when the file is on the server itself and not externally. Okay, so far so good. If we get here, then we are good to go. Now here we want to connect to our database. So every time this file is read, it's going to connect to the database. So let's add some comments here. Connect to the database. Read the input source. And then here, convert the string to an object. Okay, we can just say check if it's an object, something like that. Okay, so that covers it. Now let's do a connection. So we're going to set our connection to a value called con, and we'll say MySQL I connect. Yes, connect. So in order to connect, we need a few variables. The first one is the server name. In our case, it's localhost, but if you're using an online server, you have to know the IP address or the server name. So it's going to give you that there, you can check. And then the username is root, and then the password is just an empty string. And now we need to know the database name that we are connecting to. And what is the database name? We named it my data, like that. So yeah, this should be the connection right here. So let's put an if statement here, like so, and do that and say die failed to connect exclamation point. So if let's put an exclamation point there to negate this. So if this doesn't work out, then this is what will be returned back. So let's come back here and refresh the page and see if we do get that. So the fact that we get an empty string means everything went well. We can test that by messing things up a little bit and then refresh. Okay, so we don't even get, oh, there we go. We have the error now. It's saying, warning, MySQL connect, blah, 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 could not connect, A, B, C, D. Okay, so we know everything is working. So we have connected to our database. So all we need to do now is read from it, and that's it. So how do we read here? Now reading is simple. We'll say read from the database. Yeah. So what I want to do is to read and say, oh, first of all, I need to create a query. So let's do a query here real quick. So our query will say select O from employees. That's the table name. Yeah, so here you can determine exactly what you want to read. So we just want to read everything. So select all from employees, and then I may just want to order by the last one. So I'm going to say order by employee, let me come back here for a second and check what columns are there. I want to get the primary index, which is employee number. So I'm going to say order by employee and number, like that, descending. Okay. Now that we have our query, let's run it, shall we? So I'm going to say result is equal to MySQLi query. Let's run the query. In order to run the query, we need to supply the connection and then supply the query. Okay. And then here we check if there was an actual result. So say if there was nothing wrong with the query. So say if not, oh, not that, if result, like that. And then if, again, MySQLi num rows, if we've returned some rows in this result, if that is greater than 0, then we are good to go. Okay. Then now all we have to do is fetch these items one by one. So just say row is equal to MySQLi fetch result. Yes, let's use a while statement here so that we loop through all of it. So while row like that. So while we are fetching in here, what do we do? While row fetch. Now, of course, if you look at this, it's getting a little bit complex here. So we're going to send this to another function here so that we have just some clean code here. But for now, this will do. So here, I'm going to say, let me create a, I'll create an array here, and I'll say, or is equal to, this would be an empty array. So this one is fetch, let me do underscore assoc like that. So that I fetch an associative array. Okay, so row here, copy, but I do want to, I don't know if fetch object is a thing, but no, it seems it's not. So what I want to do here is I want to fetch objects because we are dealing with JSON or JavaScript, so it's better to use objects. So what I want to do is say array, add to it is equal to row, whatever the row is, because I'm collecting them. But I want this to be converted to an object before I can add it to the list, so I'll do that. Okay, so there we go. We are reading from the database and shoving everything into that. And so once we are done with this, I want to JSON decode, right here. I just want to say echo, because remember, everything we echo in here, even if it's just errors, is what is returned on the other side. So let's just echo it, but we cannot echo an array. So instead of using print readable as well, let's use JSON encode. So we're encoding it for travel so it can go to the other side. All right, so that's about it. So let's see if we actually get something back. So I'm going to refresh. And as you can see in the console, we have all the records returned. So everything worked out fine, right? Right. Okay, so this is good that we have everything we need. We just now need to populate the table with this data.